Welcome to Drinks with D. Community, entertainment, and conversation.
Everybody, Drinks with D. Big warm welcome to Krisann Miller.
Hi, Dee.
Hi, Krisann.
Thanks for having me.
So as I schedule people for my podcast, Drinks with D, I always sit there and go, well, how long have I known some people? Some people I had Deidre last week, and I've only really known her since the fall, but we've kind of worked together. We've known each other, what now?
We're going on
2016, 2017?
Yeah, easily when I came back to Bismarck. I think when I met up, and it would have been 2017.
Well, kind of one of the roundabout things. We met because my son, of course, Grant, has special needs, has autism, and I think you were at an event. We were doing an autism event because you're an OT, and you have your own therapy clinic, Little Lights Pediatric Therapy.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
And that is what brought us and our worlds together.
I know. Well, worlds collide. I mean, and people are probably like, is all the people who hang out with special needs people? No, that's not the case. I hang out with all people who like to drink. I'm not that picky, even if you drink soda or drink tea or whatever. So let's start out. We'll talk a little bit about Little Lights Pediatric Therapy and what possessed you, or what was your passion to get in to be an OT?
Well, a little background on me. I've been a practicing therapist for about 15 and a half years. Owning a business was never in my life plan. I'd have laughed at somebody at this point in time if they said this is where I would be. However, through my life journey, decided that I wanted better for the kids that we serve. And so I decided to go, and starting out of my back room of my house, I started serving kids in the home and community setting and just ran with it.
So was that your calling? Were you like in high school and you're like, I want to be an OT. I want to be not just an OT, because, I mean, there's a lot of OTs out there, occupational therapists, for people that don't know, but you wanted to work with kids. So, I mean, what was the light bulb that went on over your head?
I never even knew what OT was.
I didn't either until I had a son diagnosed. But
when I started the college journey, I was going to be a vet. I was going to be a pharmacist. I actually started school at University of Mary for physical therapy. And my freshman advisor, was an OT. And she's like, have you ever considered OT? I said, no. About 3/4 of the way through my freshman year, I'm like, I don't want to do PT anymore.
Yeah.
So I started looking down the road of OT, and I've never looked back. But
So
always known I've wanted to work with kids.
Hey, trust me, we've all had that. I was a farm girl. I went to be a nanny because I wanted to go in the theater, and my dad wouldn't let me go in the theater. So I went to be a nanny to go to New York just to make my dad angry. And then I came back and I got into radio. So, I mean, who at 18 really knows what they want to be?
Life paths, girl.
So what kind of, how long of schooling or how long of education do you have to go to be an OT?
So I did about 5.5 years for my master's degree. So I have a master's in occupational therapy. My bachelor's degree, we always laugh that we have the BUS degree. It was a bachelor's of university studies. And then you go on to do your master's of OT. I have a minor in special education as well.
Oh, okay. Well, that's, and I always say in this day and age, having a special education degree is very important. So you worked for other clinic, like outside of Bismarck, for quite a while. And then, like I said, you went in your house one day, I want to start my own business out of the back of my house. And your husband went, what? No.
He was actually the one that encouraged that I should
really?
stop commuting and said I should start my own. I had another good friend of mine that kept saying, you should start a business. You should start a business. I said, that's not in my life plan. But there were some situations happening at the time, and I was commuting a lot. I was commuting to Minot at the time, and that was just getting to be a lot between work, the farm, and otherwise. Mm-hmm. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to stay home. I'm going to do my own thing.
Yeah, so, you're going to Minot. So I guess I always wondered, and I never asked you this question, how did you come up with the name for your clinic?
A very, very lot of time and effort and a lot of Googling. I actually sat and stewed on the name. I swear that was one of the hardest things about starting a business, is to pick a name that you're going to stick with.
Yeah.
I kind of had a twofold approach to my naming of my clinic. I myself consider I'm more of a faith religious type person, and so I came to think about the song "This Little Light of Mine," mm-hmm. and then I started to think about the kids that we work with and how they are truly like little lights and shining stars, and that's how the name was born.
Oh, I think you may have told me that story. Now it's like in my old brain kind of ringing a bell. So, you've grown since I've even known you. You've had a couple different locations and things like that. And like how much staff do you have? We could talk about the challenges of business ownership till the cows come home. But I mean, how much staff do you have, and what's your daily life like?
So for the first year and a half, I started out solo practitioner, right? I wasn't going to hire anybody. I was going to do my own thing. And then it turned into, right before COVID, I hired my first staff. She had interned with me and then joined my staff. We have since grown then. I have two practicing therapists in the Linton-Strasburg area, so they service that southeast corner. And I have more full-time staff up here. Right now it's about 5 OTs, and 5 full-time OTs and a part-time OT, a part-time speech and part-time PT right now. So
Okay.
always hiring.
Yeah, and I guess we can address this question too. There's a lot of therapy clinics around, and does it seem to you, and me as a parent who having special needs child, does it seem to you that there's more clinics and there's more demand for it? I mean, are more kids getting diagnosed with, autism or sensory processing or whatever? It just seems like there's clinics popping up everywhere now.
And that's a very, very good point of what it looks like now. When I graduated college in 2008, I had to leave town. I had to go to Fargo and work for about 4.5 years because there was no jobs for me, either unless you had experience or you had done an internship somewhere. You weren't getting a job out here. Now the demand is so high that therapy clinics can't fulfill their needs for
and
therapists.
There's wait lists. There's wait lists to get
in every
into
clinic.
clinics.
So we're all fighting to try and get those wait lists down, but there's a high need for services for these kids. I think, I even think back to when I started, therapy isn't much talked about, especially for kids. And then you go and ask somebody what OT does, and everyone's like, they'll get me a job. The number one answer that falls in is if we can get people a job. And why do we need to give kids jobs?
Yeah.
And so I think it's part of my life plan to educate on OT, what OT can do
Yeah.
In general as a whole, because there's so much we can do that people don't know that we can do.
I think about the therapy aspect too. Is like, I'm 53 years old, but I can't imagine. I mean, when I grew up, your parents wouldn't send you to therapy. They'd send you to the field and go pick some rocks. If you're, if you have ADHD or whatever back then, you're too hyper. So now it really is talk. I mean, like I said, my son was diagnosed, and oh my God, I'm gonna do math. They're like about 2013, and there's so many clinics that have popped up now, which is amazing. But I do think that we're all more sensitive to like the needs of kids and things now. That hey, they just need a little help.
I think so too. And we look at in general more diagnoses, autism, ADHD. We look at our increasing need for mental health services and how OT can play a role in some of those services alongside counselors and psychologists and psychiatrists. Speech therapists, PTs, all the services now. But I think it's becoming, now that people are becoming more educated on what pediatric therapy is, being more open to it. And I think it is much more accepted now than it ever has been.
I think it definitely is, like I said, with everybody having the wait list, and for somebody who's like, okay, what would an OT do with a kid? I know when my son has gone back, you help him, even brushing his teeth or going to the bathroom or making their own snacks. Is that kind of like what you do with all kiddos? Everybody has their own plan and goals for their kid, but is that kind of like, basically, because they don't let the parents in the room when they're doing the thing. Because I can't go back with my son because he would look like, Mom, why are you here, kind of a thing. So is that kind of explain to people what you do when you take a kiddo back for a session?
You know your OT well, Dee. You know your OT well.
It's been a long journey already for me. So.
The easiest way that we can describe OT to people, because everyone's like, what's OT and what do they do, is basically any challenge area our kids have in their daily life, whether that be dressing, feeding, brushing teeth, toileting, motor skills. OT was once looked upon as OT is the upper half of the body and PT is the lower half, and we now know that to not be true.
Yeah, it's the whole body.
We're a very holistic approach to things. So anything that we can do to help those kids improve their daily life, whether it's social skills, emotional skills, we do a lot of feeding, those kind of things.
Yeah.
Anything that impacts these kids, we do try and improve those for those kids.
Yeah.
And the families as a whole.
Yes.
As you bring up the good point of, whether parents can or cannot be involved in therapy, very dependent on family, very dependent on the kid. We love our families to be involved as much as is able.
I just know my son, anytime I've
Yep.
gone to therapy or any activity, he's like, why are you here? He's also 13.
And
He
that's
might be
not uncommon
nonverbal.
either.
He might be nonverbal, but he's a 13-year-old boy still going, Mom, you're embarrassing me, kind of a thing. So let's talk a little bit about, we're not going to just talk about, Little Lights Pediatric Therapy, but I did want to hit on a thing. And, we just kind of finished up April and Autism Awareness Month, but you, along with Poppy's Promise, do autism testing, which I find it's amazing. It's in our community because when my son was diagnosed in 2013, it took me months, and it took me an outside crew from outside of Bismarck to come and finally get a diagnosis. So why don't you tell a bit about what you guys do with the autism testing, like how do you get started in that whole process?
I love talking about this because this is kind of the niche that we've been able to bring to Bismarck, Mandan, and the general state. We get families from all over the state that are seeking this service out. So like you had mentioned, we were in a previous location, and then when Poppy's was growing and we were growing, we decided, hey, why don't we collaborate and provide services in the same location, which is very convenient for families. Very
one little
convenient.
elevator up or one little elevator down.
We made it convenient, and that was fantastic. So I had a staff member at the time who had been trained in Montana through her school district in we call it the ADOS, the Autism Diagnostic Observation Scale. And so she had wanted to keep her skills honed for that. And so when Lorena, Poppy, and I started visiting about the potential for this, we thought this would be a great service we could offer. So between her clinic and mine, we put together, it consists of a psychologist, a BCBA, a board-certified behavioral analyst, and we have, between OT and speech, our service providers who actually give the standardized assessment. And then we have a team that meets with the family to provide the diagnosis and resources or discuss options if the child does not come out with a diagnosis.
And that's a funny thing people don't know, and people still ask me this, like, how are you diagnosed with autism? Well, it's not like a blood draw, it's not whatever, it's a behavioral thing. So you're observing to see if they have those characteristics and things like that.
And that was one thing when we started that process of looking at what this would look like for our clinics. We wanted something different. We didn't want the standard, here's your diagnosis, have a nice life, we'll see you again, or not. We wanted something different for our families. So we actually set aside currently one day a month to autism test 2 children that day. And what we wanted to do was we give the standardized assessment, takes about 45 minutes to an hour. We send the family away for a little while the team collaborates, scores the assessment and otherwise, and then we bring them back to meet with the team and have discussion over the results of that assessment. So families get to hear how the standardized assessment went. They get to hear the psychologist opinion and his thoughts on the process, and then discussion of the diagnosis or lack thereof.
Well, either way, it is like, as a parent, it's a hard pill to take. You're kind of relieved when you're like, okay, my kid doesn't have autism, but obviously we know that he's got some things we need to work on. Or if you're a parent like me, like your kid has autism, which I kind of knew, you're like, okay, I was like, let's figure this out. Let's move forward and do that. So I guess, do they contact just Little Lights or Poppies if they are curious about getting on the wait list for the testing? How do they do that?
So right now we have either. You can either reach out to Poppy's Promise. Lorena Poppy is currently doing our intakes for our ADOS testing, or you can contact Little Lights and we'll get the paperwork done.
Yeah, but I've always said, as being a parent, I'm like, you know what, I would say use your mommy gut, and if you know something's off, it doesn't hurt to get tested. I mean, is there, I guess the question people are probably asking, is there a fee attached with that? Do you need a referral from a doctor or anything, or...
Right now, we take care of the paperwork on our end. We need the families to call. That's their number one job, is to just call.
Okay.
We recognize the wait list, and so we encourage parents to put their kids on the wait list, and it gives them time to, if something comes up, they can change their minds, but we encourage families to get on that list.
Yes.
And so they call our office, we put them on the list, and then we contact them as their time gets closer. We do all the paperwork for the doctor referrals, as well as we run through state insurance as well as commercial insurance.
And I know people too. Even like if you do get diagnosis, there's programs out there too. You can be on there. There's waivers and things. So I think a lot of people don't even sometimes get their kids tested because they're like, I can't afford to it's that it's unfortunate in this world that we have to worry about, do I feed my kid or I get my kid into the therapy? Like I said, we said before that therapy is more accepted now, but I mean, there was a stigma probably even 10, 15, 20 years ago. Therapy? You're in therapy? I mean, we all need therapy after COVID, don't we? I mean,
yes, it feels that
drink
way, doesn't
therapy
it?
sometimes. I mean, lots of times. At least once a week. I'm like, Krisann, are you working today? Mommy's got respite.
we all need that outlet, don't we?
Yeah. Is there anything else I guess you want to say about the
And the
autism
biggest-
testing or?
The biggest thing that I wanted to iterate when we started this autism testing that we do a little bit differently than most is we wanted our families to feel supported when they left. Our psychologist right now is fantastic. There are resources provided if there is an autism diagnosis given for what resources are available in our community. That's community-wide. We give options to families, but we want them to walk out the door knowing they have options. And our psychologist, like I said, is pretty fantastic, that if there isn't a diagnosis given, he'll either do follow-up with appropriate agencies, and he may look down an avenue of, if maybe it's not autism, but maybe it's ADHD or maybe it's oppositional defiance. He's very thorough. So we all get a good feeling, and we want our families to have a good feeling of when they walk out the door that they're going to be supported when they're done.
And that's amazing. Like I said, when I felt, and I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, I'm not using names, and we got our diagnosis like, here, your son has autism, have a great day. And we were like, and if I wasn't a stubborn mule and started calling places, we wouldn't be. I mean, obviously, Grant still got challenges, but I mean, I feel like a lot of parents have that because if they're not stubborn or persistent like me, they're going to well, there's nothing here for me. So I do feel like ask those questions, make sure you're asking those questions all the time because I mean, even when Grant stopped talking, they just said to me, oh, he's got delays. And I'm like, I don't think it's just delays. He was talking and he's not. So use your mommy gut or your daddy gut if you're the guy, in charge of that, making those decisions as well.
As therapists, we don't love the wait and see approach.
No.
We just like that, and we know that early intervention is key to any of our kids,
Yes.
diagnosis or otherwise, and so we agree 100% with you, Dee.
That goes with anything. That goes any challenge you have. Wait and see is not, you think, I'm not feeling well. I'm going to wait until I really don't feel well, and then I'll go ahead. So.
And we don't like that approach. And, we do get kids that get through that wait and see approach through the years, and that it gets challenging the older they get. But we are willing to work through those with kids and families and really want them to get all the assistance that they can get, whether it's from us or someone else. If we don't know it, we'll send you to someone who does.
Okay.
So, and to navigate the system is difficult.
It is. It's trust me, respite and paperwork. But like I said, I'm a stubborn mule. So you give me a pile of paperwork, I will get through it.
We need those stubborn mule attitudes.
Yeah, you know me very well. So let's talk a little bit about, so we've known each other probably, I don't know, I'm doing math in my head. Probably
like 7 years.
Yeah, something like that. So you're from Minnesota. Do you
Yes.
want to claim that or not?
I will claim that. The thing I miss is the lakes.
Well,
And the trees.
yeah, Minnesota in the summer. North Dakota in the summer is great too.
I don't know that I'll claim anything else.
Where are
that
you from
state.
in Minnesota again?
Fergus Falls.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty common.
I was
town.
originally born in Elbow Lake, but nobody knows where Elbow Lake is, so
Well, it sounds like a Minnesota town.
it's a little town.
Your family all still lives there
Yes.
in Minnesota?
Yes.
Are you a Viking fan?
Do I have to answer that one?
Only when they're winning?
Oh.
What do you mean? They're not going to the Super Bowl?
I'm indifferent.
I thought that was a thing that happened every year. They're going to the Super Bowl.
I do enjoy watching them, but I don't. I'm a realist.
There's not a lot of Viking realist fans out there, so you might be one of the few.
Yep, I'm a realist.
How did you grow up? Did you grow up on a farm? I mean, what was your childhood like? I know I should have a couch in here, maybe.
You should. That'd be great. A little bit of cozy here.
We'll have some martinis next. We'll do that after this.
That's
But
great.
yeah,
I grew up, I'm the oldest and the only girl of 3 siblings. I have 2 younger brothers. My mom and dad grew up in town. I was a town kid, but my grandparents are farmers with some livestock.
How big is Fergus Falls? I don't even know.
I don't know how many people it is now.
Is it bigger than
It's-
Bismarck?
no,
Is it
it's smaller.
Smaller. Did you have
I'll have
like
to Google
fast
that.
food restaurants and
We did.
stuff? Okay,
Yep.
so you're not like Elgin where you
No,
you
I
blinked
went-
and you were through town.
I went from a class of 60. So my parents moved us when I was a sophomore. And so we moved from Elbow Lake to Fergus Falls. I went from a class of 60 to a class of 300 some.
Okay, so
So
it's
that
a
gives any significant
moderately sized town. Yeah,
it's a good sized
Like I
town.
said, it's not like Elgin where
We're not in Elgin.
even though Elgin's got a swimming pool, a coffee shop, and I think 3 bars. So we're
Beats
pretty.
Raleigh.
Oh, in the hospital. I put the hospital last. Wow, what's wrong with me? We're quite prosperous in Elgin.
Save the best for last.
I know. In the crazy. So Minnesota, you get back often, don't you?
Once in a while.
Yeah.
We have a farm, and so that makes life difficult getting back.
Well, that's the other thing I was going to talk about. Well, I can't remember your husband, Nevada, which I always think is a great name. And my daughter asked me this, Nevada? She goes, isn't that a state?
Yes, Grace,
like,
just like the state.
Wow, you're paying attention in school, honey. That's nice to know that my 11-year-old knows that's a state.
Here's the funny thing, though. When we go out to eat and people ask him how to spell his name, he has to go, it's just spelled like the state. And one of our girls goes, how do you spell that? Just like the state, honey.
Well, some kids don't know there's 50 states either. But where did you guys meet?
So, funny long story short, his mother actually trained me. My now mother-in-law trained me when I worked in the dementia unit at the Waterford, which is now Touchmark.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so my first day, she asked if I was single, and she had a son. And so the rest is history.
So you better like your mother-in-law, right?
We've been around a long time together, my mother-in-law and I.
And Nevada, didn't he okay, I'm going to get this wrong. He was a rodeo.
He was a bullfighter.
Why do I always want to say rodeo? Right. I don't know.
Because he dressed like the clown, so everyone thinks he was a clown. Because
Well,
the
he is kind of
bullfighters
a clown,
he
isn't
is
he?
a clown. Yeah, I guess.
That's an interesting profession. How long did he do that for?
He started that since he was, I don't know, 17, 18 years old.
Wow.
He'd been doing it.
I should have had you ask him why, or do you know why he ever started doing that?
I think
Just
him
like
growing
wearing
up
the
on a
makeup?
farm, his uncle actually was a bullfighter and so taught him. And then he
Oh.
took some bullfighting classes, and apparently they have bullfighting classes and bullfighting schools. And so
Really?
took some classes, and
Where would you go to bullfighting school?
that's a good question.
In the
I'll have
barn?
to ask him that. You think?
I didn't know there was such a thing. I thought you just put on some makeup and some funky clothes and you go and, hey, bull, chase me.
Why people step into that profession, I don't know. Adrenaline junkies,
Wouldn't
I
you
guess.
be terrified? I mean,
Yes.
It
It was worse sitting on the stage than it was, I think, for him.
Did he ever really get hurt? Like,
yes. He's
in the-
had broken backs. He's got a plate in his
And
left
he went
arm.
back after he got hurt?
He's a hardcore adrenaline
He must have got
junkie.
a lot of hits in the head then, too.
The logic went away.
So how long did he do that for? Were you guys married? And you guys were married when he was
did
doing
it
that?
for 1 year. He stayed doing it till 1 year after we got married back in 2013.
And then
he retired.
He's like, oh, my back, oh, my head.
It wasn't even that. It was he was busy with the taxidermy shop, and he was busy with the farm, and with him being gone every weekend. His dad had an accident at one point in time, and he started to realize he probably needed to be home a little bit more.
So we're talking about that. I mean, not only does your husband wear several hats, so do you. I mean, your husband does do taxidermy. What is the name of his? Does he have a name for his taxidermy business?
He does. He owns his own studio. It's Nevada's Wildlife Designs.
Okay,
in Mandan.
NEVADA, just like the state, everybody.
Just like the state.
But let's talk about the other thing. Not only are you the owner of Little Lights Pediatric Therapy, you and your husband also have 6 Mile Angus, which is a ranch. So, kind of talk about that a little bit.
I married into the Black Angus world. This is Nevada's passion project now. Him and his dad co-own a herd of purebred and commercial Black Angus cattle. And so that has been I call it my side gig. Though it
Especially during
full-time-
calving season.
Yeah.
I'm a farm kid, and there's calving season, like usually January through March, and it's like, don't ask me to go out during calving season. And I'm like, oh, it's for the layperson who doesn't grow up around a farm, you don't know what that means. What's calving season?
So calving season for us means January through March.
Babies are born when it's cold out.
Babies are born in the snow, in the mud, and whatever.
And they do that, and I always ask my dad, well, because in the summer we got to be in the field, so in the winter we got to be in the snow. Baby calves are being born and stuff, so.
I did ask why he picked the winter. I said, you picked the absolute worst time to pick for calving.
Because everybody does it. That's whenever,
So he does it for his bulls, so his bulls will be ready to be sold in the following February.
Yeah, you guys do like a big bull sale every year, too.
Every year. We're on number 5, I believe.
So that's 6 Mile Angus, and just want to say I'm talking to Krisann Miller, owner of Little Lights Pediatric Therapy, and you're listening to 102.5 FM. You can also listen to us at radioaccess.org or wherever you find your podcasts. So how often do you go out to the farm again now?
During calving season, it's every
weekend. I know, because she's impossible to track down. And did we say where your farm's at?
We did not. It's in Raleigh, North Dakota, not Raleigh, North Carolina.
There's Raleigh, and then there's Raleigh. So
Yep.
I know, because I'm a Western girl. I know where that's at. I've driven down Highway 6 and see the sign that's like, but I mean,
it's about an hour south of Mandan, about 17 miles south of Flasher.
Now as I'm sitting across from you, I'm like, I should have had your husband Nevada in here today too, because I'd be like, I always wonder, and I had a lot of friends whose dads were taxidermists and stuff, and I was always like, what possessed you to take a dead critter and stuff it?
You should bring him in. I'd love to hear his answer.
Do you know what his answer
Well,
would be?
did you know he used to paint? He also used to paint. I joke, he has actually real skill for painting wildlife and
Really?
anything. Yes. I paint stick people with my kids. That's how we roll.
I can't even do stick people. Come on. Really?
So he is an artist by trade.
I would love to see some of his paintings.
Yes, I should have you over to the house.
That is like an amazing story. Bullfighter, taxidermist, painter, rancher.
Man's got skills.
What else does he do that I'd be surprised by?
That's his life in a nutshell.
That's his life in
a nutshell.
He's a hardworking man, though. I mean, he's a hard time. I think we knew each other how long before I actually met him, because he was always off doing something.
Yep,
so.
He's a busy man.
As I said to one of my girlfriends once, she kept telling me she had a brother, and I knew her for years, and I never met her brother. So I used to call him Mr. Snuffleupagus, because you remember on Sesame Street, Big Bird would be like, Snuffy's coming, and I'm like, yeah, sure he is. Sure you got a brother named Brian. Sure you do, yeah.
Did you ever meet Brian?
I did. Probably. I've known this gal, my friend Tara, probably about 20 some years. I think I knew her 15 years before I met her brother. Oh, he lives in Montana now. I'm like, yeah, Montana, not the moon.
It's like finding Bigfoot.
Yes. Yeah. Well, don't get me started on that. My husband watches those shows all the time. He gets mad at me when I watch air disasters because he thinks his plane's going to crash. But I'm like, well, you're watching Bigfoot. He's going to show up at our house now, Anyway, so anything else you want to talk about the farm? Life is good?
Life is good in the farm.
Yeah.
We can't complain. Yes, like I said, we kind of...
Well, you can complain. You're farmers.
Co-work on
That's
that.
part of the whole... part of being a farmer.
I get in trouble about complaining.
Really?
No, it's fine.
So, so you have your big sale every year. So you had that already. So just gearing up. And how many herd of cattle do you have? I
think the father-in-law is breeding about 170 cows and heifers this year.
That's a lot.
So we calved out about 130.
That's a lot. And if people aren't familiar with farm or whatever, it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Lots of them can't have babies on their own. That's why you got to go out and check them. It's just like if a woman goes in to have a baby, sometimes there's complications and things like that. And
the snow and the cold makes life a little more complicated.
They always like to have
warm.
them during blizzards. I remember many a 2-3 in the morning. My brother's yelling at me, "Get up! I need some help."
I'm working on getting cameras.
Oh,
I'm trying to convince that
would be
the
genius.
husband and father-in-law that we should get cameras.
Don't get motion ones because they'd constantly be going off. Can you imagine? Move. Oh.
We had this discussion this year that the hardest thing is getting up in the middle of the night, getting dressed, going out to have nothing happening, and then having to go back
That's
in and
the
try
same
and
thing
go
when
back
you're single.
to sleep.
All right, I digress.
This is why we be friends.
I'm an old married woman now. Hey, I did want to say, I wanted to chat a little bit about, so we've known each other a while, and we were planning to go to Elton John And then COVID hit. And then they pushed the concert back, 2 years?
2 years.
It was Elton John in Fargo. It was a couple years ago. And it was like March. It was March 2 years ago, maybe. It finally happened. And I think we were all like, there was 4 of us going. We were all like, ugh, it's 2 years later. Elton John's really old. What's it going to be like?
That seemed like that concert took forever to get here.
It did. Well, COVID took forever to leave, too. But it never really left anyway. But we went to Elton John together, and let's talk about how awesome that concert was. And whether you love his music or not, I was just like floored by his energy. And I think we Googled, he's 77, something like.
Yes, I think that's when we figured it out.
That man glided across that stage. He was on. And I'm like, being an old radio chick, I'm watching the Jumbotron. Nope. I don't think he's lip syncing. It was a great concert.
Well, and he gave a 2.5-hour concert?
It was great.
It was awesome. I wish I could see it again.
And it was packed.
Yes.
It was packed.
Didn't we have nosebleed seats?
We did. That's why I didn't drink as much beer as I usually do, because the walking up and down, it's the walking down to get the beer and go to the bathroom, and then the up, it was a good, but I mean, the Fargo Dome, it's all pretty good seats there.
That was a fantastic concert. I'm glad we finally got to go.
Oh, I know.
That was
it was one of those things
waiting.
I was like, oh, do I just sell my tickets or I go? And that was, it was a kind of a bucket list thing for me, because I'd never seen Elton John.
I love Elton John, and I would have not missed that concert.
Yeah,
unless he didn't give it.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably going to do another farewell concert in 10 years. Isn't that kind of what they do?
I think he might be one of those guys that just lives forever.
Yeah, I mean,
think so.
I don't know how many artists have had farewell concerts and then they had another farewell. Because you know me, I love Aerosmith, and I just saw they announced their farewell, which I'm thinking in 5 years, they're doing another farewell. Or you can be like the Rolling Stones, who are in their 80s, and their concerts sponsored by the AARP, which I think is great, because they know. They're good. It is what it is. I mean,
oldies but goodies, girl.
I mean, like, I haven't seen the Rolling Stones either. I think I missed them many years ago, and they were in Fargo. So we need to get some good concerts.
We should add that to the bucket list. Next concert.
The Stones, yeah. That would definitely be one if they came to my neck of the woods. Anything exciting you guys got coming up in the future? Like work-wise or trip-wise, vacation-wise?
Well, we're twisting arms with some good friends of ours from Dunn Center on taking a trip to Nashville next year.
I was just in Nashville.
Yes.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
I was sad I didn't go with you.
I know you should have. I invited her, but she was just like, I don't want to be seen with you in public. And I'm like, it's a whole other state. And she's like, oh, no. Nashville is fun. And you know me, I'm not a country person, and everyone kept saying, oh, it's more than just country, but it is. And we went in the off season, and we luckily went in February, and it ended up being nice weather. It's just fun. It was just fun.
I think we're looking at October.
And that is probably good too.
Well, it's not taxidermy season. It's not calving season. It's not haying season.
Some people have tax season.
It's not hunting
some people have
season.
Taxidermy season. Well, yeah, hunting season. I mean, in my family, with my husband, that evolves a little bit around that too.
Well, you know it's bad when you plan your wedding around seasons.
Yes, that's true. Well,
we settled on September.
I know some family members who've gotten angry because people get married in the summer, and that's lake season. How dare you get married in the summer? Or I had some friends who got married McQuaid's weekend, and they're like, you can't get married McQuaid's weekend. I'm like, well,
there's always
not everybody
is
into the same, yeah, everybody's lives are extremely busy.
There is. So, well, and Dee, you and I got the privilege of sitting in a class together last weekend. And so Dee and I spent a day together at BSC at the Center for Energy Excellence, experiencing the joy and wonder of being in a SIB shop training.
Yeah, and if people don't know what SIB shops, and I had to explain this to my husband, so if you have a brother or sister that has like a disability, developmental or autism like my daughter, it can be quite, I guess, stressful for the sibling, challenging when you're you feel like the more responsible one and trying to, like my daughter, who's constantly, I'm like, can you watch your older brother for a couple minutes? I got to go run outside or whatever. So, I mean, the training was phenomenal, I have to say.
It was wonderful. And so we now have 2 facilitators through our clinic that will be able to do these. And so this is something work-wise that's really exciting that is not offered currently that we would like to be bringing to recognize the needs. Because for me, even as a therapist, I mean, we work with families. We love our families, right, and our siblings. But sometimes our siblings get left behind.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was a great eye-opener to realize the need of a population that isn't served in our communities. And as much as we all like to think we address that population, and the presenter put it so beautifully, we give our parents all the services, all the financing, all the services, all the things. But what about our siblings? And down the road, these are the siblings that are going to be taking care of their sibling with special needs.
You know, and just the other day, I picked up Grant from an event at school where, you know, it was an after-school activity, and they're having cookies or whatever, and, you know, Grace is with me, and Grant's eating a cookie, and then Grace is kind of looking at me, and then I said to one of the people in the class, I go, is it okay if Grace has some cookies? And they're like, yeah, and she was so excited because she wasn't part of that activity, and she was just there to pick up her brother, but she got to have a couple cookies too, and I kind of was like, okay, now, you know, and the thing for being at that training as a parent, I kind of sat there and went, I've kind of like dropped the ball a little bit with her because I do expect a lot out of her. Now I'm like, okay, so I'm going to take some extra time and energy to do things with her, you know, which I always kind of have, but I'm a little bit more, I guess, aware of the way I've been pushing her more. She's an 11-year-old girl, you know, so we're going to work together, and you've got the pieces, and I'm hoping to help out with bringing some sib shops to our community.
I'm really, really, after that training last week, and I am beyond excited and beyond ecstatic to have had the opportunity that the state council brought into town.
And thank them for doing that.
So thank you, Julie Hornvet, for allowing us that opportunity to train that, and by bringing a fantastic speaker who herself had personal experience with this. And, you know, this goes hand in hand with our OT goal of making things holistic, family-based, family-focused. So something exciting coming up in the work world.
Yeah, and I think there's a great need in our community. So
agreed.
Once again, I like to wrap up my podcast with 5 questions. I don't know if you've listened to my first 2. I know you're a busy gal, but once again, I'm speaking with Krisann Miller, owner of Little Lights Pediatric Therapy, and the Drinks with D. 5 questions I like to end and these are fun. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you I'm not going to ask you what your passcodes are or anything. Okay, what's your favorite hobby or activity?
I love to bake. I stress bake. I bake for fun.
Stress baking. I stress eat.
I love, they go hand in hand,
They do.
So I love to bake.
Really? What's your favorite thing to bake?
I don't know if I have a favorite.
No?
It used to be cheesecakes for a while.
Why don't you stress bake and call me?
I
love cheesecake.
I need to.
Okay. Baking. Okay. What is I don't know if this kind of goes hand in hand. What's your favorite food?
I am a grilled cheese and tomato soup fanatic.
Any time of year?
Any time of year. I also will dig chocolate anytime.
Really?
I love chocolate.
I was going to say maybe like cheese curds because whenever we meet out, Krisan's like, I'll have a beer and some cheese curds.
That is my go-to when I drink.
I'm kind of the same way though too because I'm like I actually should make a whole list of who has the best cheese curds in town because some are mediocre and some are way on the top of the.
I have my way top of the list.
I think we have the same.
I think so.
I think we can say it.
So my favorite adult beverages is my paired with cheese curds.
Yes, cheese curds. Well, that's a thing.
Or
Yeah, your adult
sticks.
beverage. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Anything cheesy. If you're lactose intolerant, I feel bad for you. What's your favorite movie or TV show? Do you ever watch? You're just running, so. I figured since you're a rancher, probably Yellowstone.
We did get through that series.
Did you?
I am a Law and Order SVU fanatic too. I love Law and Order. It's not a movie, but that's my TV
what's TV
show.
I mean, just SVU or all of them?
No, it's more SVU.
Why
I don't watch the rest of them.
No?
I don't know. I like the actors. Yeah. Again, that's my husband. Always comes and goes, dun dun.
All husbands go, dun dun.
I think so. It's common theme.
I like that one. It's Mariska Hargitay.
Yes.
Which is, if people didn't know, I'm going to date myself here too because people have written who Jane Mansfield is either, but she was a very famous actress. and that is her mother.
They are
Beautiful.
They are my favorite actors and actresses.
They're very good, and she's been on that show forever.
I don't know how many seasons.
If you ever want to see something freaky, and I don't know what year this is, and this is me having that brain that just remembers, useless knowledge. She used to be on ER way back when, in the beginning, way back when. She's kind of played a crazy character. She's, I think, did a few episodes, but Mariska, I'm going to say it wrong now. Mariska Hargitay.
She's got a name.
I can't do drinks and say that.
No,
name.
That's not a good one.
With some cheese curds.
I also am a Criminal Minds person.
I am too.
So
I
binge.
I think I
Criminal
told
Minds.
Deidre this last episode that when I watch these shows, my husband thinks I'm planning to kill him. And I always say, don't make me angry.
Well, that leads into my other TV show was Snapped. I love Snapped, so I don't know if I have
too.
like a.
Oh yeah, there's a whole list of those shows that, I mean, just because we watch them as women doesn't mean we're gonna kill somebody, but we want to equip ourselves with the tools in case we want to, scare somebody.
Scare somebody.
I mean, I wouldn't get caught. I mean,
I hope that those choices of TV shows and movies don't like depict my
there's
internal character.
I would think there's a psychologist who would analyze that and go, "Oh God, you're watching." I mean, you're looking at your Netflix playlist.
Oh, and you're a kid therapist.
Oh, you'll be investigated.
I love my kids. I love my kids.
Oh, yeah, you do a great job with them as well. So, okay, we got something people don't know about you.
Like a fun fact or just
Anything.
in general?
I mean, like in general or anything. Anything.
I went skydiving once.
Really?
I never thought I would do that.
I can't imagine you skydiving.
I did. I skydove in Arizona one year.
Were you very young?
No, I would say 20s.
So what like made you want to do that?
I was dating a guy and he was an adrenaline junkie. And so we were down there on vacation and we decided to jump out of a plane.
I don't care if I was dating Brad Pitt. I would not jump out of an airplane. Are you? Oh my. So did you enjoy it? Was it?
It was thrilling. Do I think I would do it again? I'm not really sure if I'd do it again.
What's that moment like when you first jump out of the plane?
Thank the good Lord there was someone on my back because you can't. You have to take a class to go solo.
Okay.
I tandemed it. Obviously, I wasn't going alone. So I knew someone had my back.
Okay, so you had like that safety thing.
I had a safety thing.
Okay,
but that's one thing people don't know about me.
I didn't know that. I don't think I'd have done that. I wouldn't bungee jump either. I see these risk taker thing, and I'm like, life is risky enough. Why would I do that?
You ever do those things and you look back and you're like, huh, what was I thinking at that time?
In your 20s?
I was probably in my early to mid 20s.
And how long were you dating this guy before he let you talk you into going?
We've been together going on 2 years.
Okay, so that's and then how long were you together after?
We stayed together for a while after that.
Okay, so it was worth it then, right?
I don't know. He got me out of my comfort zone, I guess, if you want to call it that way.
Yeah, that's a comfort zone, but I don't know.
That was a comfort zone. I don't know if I'd go out of again.
I mean, I don't mind flying. Like, my husband's scared to fly. I mean, some bumps, it don't bother me, but jumping on a plane.
That was kind of a unique experience.
How far up do you go?
I don't even remember how far they.
You blacked out, didn't you?
Probably. My PTSD kicked in for.
Yeah, I know some people that do this all the time. They skydive. They're gonna skydive in their state. I'm gonna jump off this. I'm like, no, thank you.
I wondered what would have happened if I would have chickened out.
He'd have probably dumped you.
He dumped you, probably.
You would jump out of this plane.
That was going to be the deal breaker, maybe.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you don't jump out of this plane, you don't love me.
Yeah.
Something like that. Okay. Final question. Because it is Drinks with D. What is your favorite drink? Whether it's alcoholic, whether it's non-alcoholic, whether it's whatever.
Well, my favorite adult beverage is Angry Orchard.
Yes.
Preferably off the tap.
Yes.
So when
with
we meet, it usually comes off the tap, doesn't it, Dee?
Yes.
With my cheese curds.
Most places in town have that, yeah.
Yes. I don't know if I have a favorite. I like lemonade as a non-alcoholic.
Yeah.
Or cherry Pepsi is my favorite.
Yeah.
Pop, if I have to pick a favorite pop.
Yeah, I always ask people this question, but I sit there and think about myself. It depends what time of the day it is.
Usually you and I aren't drinking the nons.
Well, yeah, I don't go to the local bar and say, "Can I have a cherry Coke or whatever?" But Anyway, so yeah, that's my 5 questions.
Those
This
are
was
great
pretty-
5 questions.
Those are it's pretty quick and painless.
I love
isn't
it.
Okay. Well, once again, I do want to thank Krisann Miller, owner of Little Lights Pediatric Therapy. And if people need to maybe they're thinking about therapy for their kiddo, they have questions about autism testing, you can find her. We're in the world of social media. You can reach out and find her. And it's another episode of Drinks with Dee. Krisann, thanks for spending some time with me today.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
You've been listening to Drinks with Dee. Find out more on Facebook.